Since the attempted banning of the Red Pill movie came to us courtesy of censorious feminists in Australia, there has been an avalanche of media coverage of the movie, both pro and con, and some in between. Even some feminist writers, skeptical of the movie's message, have come out in favor of giving it a fair hearing. In the mix is Cathy Young, a vocal and sometimes articulate supporter of men's issues, to offer her take on it. Consistent with her now familiar form, she could not resist inserting disingenuous attacks on men's advocates in her commentary. That and what it means to the bigger picture of the men's movement coming up next on An Ear for Men. Hi everyone, Paul Elam here, and welcome back to An Ear for Men, where populism comes to die a slow, horrible death. You know, I don't have any shortage of emails from people who, with the best of intentions in mind, write to tell me everything, from why I should be more like Warren Farrell to how I should give a pass to superficial allies because they do more good than harm for the men's movement, generally speaking. As most of you know, I put little stock in these messages, so please consider this a trigger warning for those who need it. My cause, the men's movement to which I associate, is a movement against the view of men as utilities for the benefit of women. It is a movement that focuses on men's civil rights, and it counters the corrupt narrative that lends itself to male disposability. To be frank, I don't care fuck all for popularity or for being palatable to the mainstream. I don't even care about the support of fellow anti-feminists who, in my mind, erroneously steer clear of criticizing fair-weather allies who more quietly foster toxic and sometimes destructive messages about men and boys. I caught a lot of flack and lost some subscribers when I did a video, linked in the low bar, critical of Christina Hoff Sommers for her furthering ideas on poverty that dismissed the experiences of men, and for her pushing for male chivalry, gallantry, and other forms of service to women, including her endorsement of he for she of all things. I even got some hostile emails from a couple of very well-known figures in the alternative media for that one. I maintain, without the slightest bit of smugness, that I do not give a single fuck about that. I am an advocate for men and boys. When people advocate for their disposability, as Sommers has, I'm going to say something. When people spread disinformation about the lived experience of men, I'm going to say something. Those who cannot handle it are free to crush my life beneath the weight of their unsubbing from this channel. And the same goes for when people lie about me and A Voice for Men, as Cathy Young has engaged in for years at this point. Young, a sometimes articulate voice in countering the feminist narrative, also has an element to her work of which I would never accuse Sommers. Young is a hubristic scammer, sometimes more detached from reality than your average radical feminist. And when it comes to advocacy for men and boys, her position is simple. She will support men and boys and deigns to grant them permission to speak about their issues just so long as they mind their place and don't act all uppity in what they have to say. In short, we are okay as long as we mind our betters. And of course, the sum total of our betters can be defined in two words: Cathy Young. Back in July of 2013, Young penned a piece in the Boston Globe in which she referred to A Voice for Men as follows, and I quote, "Some leading men's rights websites, such as A Voice for Men, offer a steady diet of vulgar woman bashing that discredits any valid points they make." Unquote. Now, I suppose I should be grateful, as she attacked Men on Strike author Dr. Helen Smith in somewhat less strident but similarly rhetorical fashion. This was just the first round of Young proclaiming to her readers that she was the arbiter of how men's issues ought to be discussed. And of course, her being a woman, she should know, right? Well, naturally, as CEO of A Voice for Men, I felt compelled to respond. That article is linked in the low bar. The Honey Badger Brigade, well aware that Young's attack was not limited to AVFM, but indeed extended to all major sites advocating for men and boys who don't bother with politically correct gags, also published a response on AVFM that included signatures from the most well-known female men's advocates at the time. That too is linked in the low bar. In true ersatz men's advocate fashion, Young's response to that was to whine and bellyache about people taking public issue with her libelous copy. Apparently, it was a cut that has not healed, as frequently happens with the pompous and hubristic. Just recently, Young was back at it again with a review of the Red Pill movie. She gave the film its due credit and pointed to some of the hypocrisy in the mainstream panning of the film, but she could not manage to finish her review without taking shots at some advocates that don't fit her arm's-length version of advocacy that she would prefer to be conducted over latte and scones with polite company involved. Young wrote, and I quote, "One valid criticism of the Red Pill is that it soft-pedals or evades the extreme, even genuinely misogynistic rhetoric spouted by some of its subjects, such as the prominently featured Paul Elam, founder of A Voice for Men. Jay defends an infamous post of his proclaiming October Bash a Violent Bitch Month, in lieu of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as a satirical rejoinder to a post on the feminist blog Jezebel that treats women's violence toward men with humor and bravado. But even accepting that argument, there are other Elam posts that are hard to dismiss as satire, including one declaring that women who taunt men sexually are begging to be raped," unquote. Unwilling to stop there, on me, perhaps the easiest target since I have a penis, she goes on to rail about Allison Tiemann, and I quote, "Another interviewee, female MRA Allison Tiemann, has authored a bizarre rant claiming that most women are so sexually selfish and arrogant that it's a mystery why men bother with them." Bizarre, misogynistic, ranting. Tried and true, if not shop-worn feminist talking points woven directly into supportive commentary on the documentary, which is about bringing attention to issues faced by men and boys. It's easy to say something glib like "with friends like these" and just move on. But this is actually speaking to a critical point in the future of the men's movement, so let's dissect it and then speak to why it's so important. First, I had to chuckle when Young says, "even if you accept that my piece was satire." For fuck's sake! The fact that it was satire was stated in the piece itself, linked in the low bar. It was placed there as a disclaimer for feminists because we know their relationship with satire is about the same as it is with humor. It just doesn't exist. Young shows doubt about the satirical nature of the piece because she wants her readers to doubt it as well. It's a disgusting, dishonest bit of claptrap, emulating the worst of feminist demagoguery from a self-appointed Madonna on men's issues. The piece about rape, also linked, is another bit of juvenalian satire that takes a shot at ideologues who equate self-defense training for women with rape apology. It's the whole "don't teach women to protect themselves, teach men not to rape" bit of bullshit that continues to leave women more vulnerable to violent attacks. It would take a moron not to see that. Or perhaps just Cathy Young. And mind you, the piece was written 6 years ago, which is how far Young had to dig back to find something to be outraged by. Well, bless her pointed little head. We certainly have to give her kudos for trying. Her attack on Allison Tiemann is similarly misguided. Tiemann, who was given less than a minute on screen in the Red Pill movie, wrote her piece as a satirical shot at the enthusiastic consent standard in matters of alleged sexual assault. Young calls her, for that, bizarre and writes as though the piece wasn't satire. Again, and just as shamefully, right out of the feminist playbook. Now, it would be easy to sum up the problem here in 4 words. Cathy Young is stupid. The only problem is that she isn't. She is, however, in my opinion, a self-important asshole with an axe to grind against anyone who doesn't meet her phony baloney standards of proper discourse. And this is where she and the people who mistakenly confuse her for an asset in furthering men's issues have something to learn that they probably won't. The men's movement does not belong to any self-appointed hall monitors. It doesn't belong to me, to Allison Tiemann, Warren Farrell, Cassie J., Aaron Pitsey, Harry Crouch, or any other individual or group. It sure as fuck doesn't belong to Cathy Young. The men's movement is nothing more than a pendulum swing away from the dictatorial ideology known as feminism. And yes, away from the prim and proper standards and equally retarded edicts of traditional gynocentrists like Dennis Prager. The only rules involved are those imposed on individuals by themselves. And most, I dare say all, who are giving this movement momentum are those who make irate schoolmarms like Cathy Young clutch pearls and have convulsive fits of fake nobility. The men's movement is about men changing their view of themselves in the world in any way they please, and learning to pursue happiness and self-actualization with or without the approval of women and other men. And it is about laughing in the face of those who would shame them, just like Cathy Young is trying to do. In fact, one way of putting it is that the men's movement, the one that is actually happening outside of Cathy Young's insulated and well-paid existence, is a middle finger shoved directly in her holier-than-thou face. To me, that is the only movement that matters, and I don't give a damn if Cathy Young likes it, or for that matter, anyone else. And that is it for another Talk from an Ear for Men. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, even if you haven't, and see you next time.